moving on to multiplication, we again have some truths that are always true. Just like we saw with addition, there is a commutative property of multiplication. So we can multiply 4 times 3 and get 12. We can multiply 3 times 4 and get 12. So if you had 4 groups of 3 of something, you get 12. If you have 3 groups of 4, also 12. So if we want to write this in plain language, we could say order doesn't matter, just like it doesn't with addition. Okay, there's also an associative property. When we associate, we can hug. Doesn't matter if we hug the first person or if those two people hug first, we're still going to get the same answer. So in other words, if we've got this 4 times 5 times 3, we could multiply the 4 times 5 together first. That would give us 20. Then we have 20 times 3. That gives us 60. Or we could multiply this 5 times 3 first. We'll get 4 times 15, which also gives us 60. So the grouping doesn't matter. So compare and contrast those two because they're pretty similar. The first one, usually you just have 2 numbers, okay? And you can flip the order of those 2 numbers and you'll still get the same answer. Associative property is where you're grouping them separately. So either you multiply those first 2 numbers together first, or you multiply the second and third number together first. Either way, you end up with the same answer. Okay, multiplicative identity property. So what could you multiply by to end up with the same thing you started with? In this case, it's 1. So if you're a 4 and you multiply by 1, you're still going to end up with 4. So any number multiplied by 1 is going to give you that same number. Essentially, it's a group of that number. So if you have 936 and you multiply by 1, you're saying you have one group of 936. So you end up back at 936. Multiplicative property of 0 is telling you that if you multiply any number by 0, you're going to get an answer of 0. So 4 times 0, well, really, that means 4 groups of 0. So no matter how many groups of 0 you have, you still end up with 0. Or if you have 0 groups of 7, well, you still end up with 0. And last property is the distributive property. And so I'm going to say that I like to think of as the rainbow. Okay, and for those of you who know Marianne in our department as well, I remember hearing the Rainbow Connection playing one day in her class, and I had to open it up and ask what the heck was going on. And it was because they were talking about doing the rainbow. So it's not just me that mentions rainbows. Okay, so if you have something like this here, we've got 5 multiplied by this sum in brackets. Well, you're going to learn that when you have brackets, that means do the brackets first. So one way you could do this is you'd go 5 times, well, 3 plus 4 is 7. So you'd have 5 times 7 and you'd get 35. Another way you can do it is called distributing the 5. So we can multiply that 5 times this 3 and then add the 5 times this 4. And I should use some prettier colors here, and you'll see that we're going to start creating a rainbow. Okay, so that's why I call it a rainbow. So 5 times 3 plus 4, we could do the old Bednar's approach we're going to learn soon, or you probably are familiar with already. We could also distribute out that 5. We could multiply the 5 out separately from the 3 and then from the 4. Okay, same thing down here. We're dealing with letters now. We've got A multiplied by B plus C. We can multiply A times B. And then that's going to give us A times B, AB. This is just in general, so you can think of A and B as any numbers. And then we're going to add A times C. So that's the distributive property. And we'll do some practice with that. Okay, let's remember multiplication. So I'm going to do this question over here. So we've got 56 times 47. So what you want to do with multiplication is first start with your bottom number. Start with the number on the right. So here, that's the 7. You're going to take that 7, and first you're going to multiply it by the number right above it, by the 6. So we go 7 times 6. and that gives us 42. Remember, you've got a multiplication table on your formula sheet you're welcome to use for all of your tests and homework. So 42, I'm going to carry down the 2, and just kind of like when we were adding, we're going to put the 4 up here for the 40. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 2, now we're going to take this 7 and multiply it by this 5 over here. So we're going to have 7 times 5, that gives us 35, and we're going to add this 4. So 7 times 5 gives us 35, plus the 4 gives us 39. And that's the end of that first number. Okay, now we're done with the ones. Now we're going to move on to the tens. So we're going to take this 4, and now we're basically going to do the same thing with it. We're going to multiply it by each of the digits in that top number. So we're going to start with 4 times 6. 4 times 6 gives me 24. And here's the trick. That's going to go here. Your 4 for that number is going 1 over to the left. So some people like to add a 0 here to show that every time you go down a line, you're going to add another 0. You're going to start 1 over to the left. I tend to just not put it in and remember that that is a 0. So, or you can put an X here, whatever you like. I'll put a 0 for now. Maybe that's easier. So now we've got 4 times 6 is 24. So we've got our 4. We're going to carry that 2. So that's now a 2. And then we've got 4 times 5 gives us 20, plus the 2 gives us 22. Okay, so first step is to multiply everything by what's in the ones column on the bottom. Second step, move 1 over. So in this case to the tens. If there were hundreds, we would move 1 over and do another line down on here to figure out what the hundreds multiply out by. So you go digit by digit. Once you're done, you're going to add those numbers up. So we get a 2, 13, 6, 2. So 2,632. So let's try a few more of those. Okay. So first one, so we're going to start with this ones column. We're going to go 7 multiplied by the 5. That gives us 35. So I'm going to write down the 5 and carry the 3 up here. Then I'm going to go 7 times the 7. 7 times 7 is 49. I like to remember it with 2 pairs of lines, kind of like the 7 and the 7, make 49. So it's a little rhyme. I've always found that one hard for some reason. So 7 times 7 is 49. We add 3 to give us 52. So we put down our 2. We're at the end, so we can put down our 5 too. So that's just a 52. Okay, now we're going to move over to the 4s. So we can write our 0 here, and then we're going to start. So 4 times 5 gives us 20. So I'll write the 0 down for the 20, and the 2 gets carried up. And then we do 4 times 7 is 28, plus 2 gives us 30. Next step, we want to add those numbers together. And that leaves us with 3,525. Let's do one more together. So ones column here, we're going to multiply. Well, let's use yellow just for fun. We're going to multiply that 9 by 6. That gives us 54. And if you don't know the finger trick for your 9 multiplication, let me know and I'll show you in person. It's easier to show you in person. Now we've got 9 times 3, that's 27. Then we're going to add the 5. So 27 plus 5, that gives us 32. Okay, we're moving down a digit or moving over a digit. So we're going to start by putting a 0 here. And now we're looking at this 4. So we've got 4 times 6. Gives us 24, carry the 2. 4 times 3 gives us 12. Add the 2 for 14. And now we can add those two numbers together. And we get 1,764. So try these next ones and see if you're able to multiply them. Try to do them without a calculator. All right, let's try these multiplications together. So we've got a 7 here multiplied by the 6 gives us 42, carry the 4. 7 times 4 is 28, then we're going to add the 4 for 32. carry the 3. Then we've got 7 times 5 gives us 35. Add the 3 for 38. Okay, now we're going to go down a line. We're immediately going to put a 0 here. And then we're going to concentrate on the 4. So we've got 4 times 6 gives us 24. Carry the 2. 4 times 4 is 16. Add 2 for 18. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 1 gives us 21. And now we can add them. And I get 25,662. Okay, let's take a look at this next one. So we're going to start with the ones column. 7 times 5 gives us 35. Carry the 3. 7 times 3 is 21, plus the 3 gives us 24. Carry that 2. 7 times 9 is 63, plus 2 is 65. Okay, we're going a line down, so we're adding a 0. And now we're concentrating on the 5. So 5 times 5 gives me 25, carry the 2. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17. So we'll carry that 1 over. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 1 is 46. Okay, now we've got to go a digit further, and I realized that was kind of rude. I should have done one of those as an example. But this time we're going to add 2 zeros because we're going 2 over. So we're 2 lines down. We add 2 zeros to start. Now we can concentrate on that 6. 6 times 5 gives us 30. So carry the 3. 6 times 3 is 18, plus another 3 gives us 21. We'll carry the 2 over. And 6 times 9 is 54. And then add 2 gives us 56. So now we can add all 3 of these lines together. And I get 614,295. Okay, next one. Again, we're going to start concentrating on the ones. So 7 times 6 gives us 42. Carry that 4. 7 times 4 is 28. Oh, this is very similar to one we've done. Okay, 7 times 4 is 28, plus another 4 gives us 32. 7 times 5 is 35, plus 3 is 38. Now we're going to move into the tens. We're going to add that 0. 4 times 6 gives us 24, carry the 2. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 2 gives us 18. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 1 gives us 21. Now we're going to add 2 zeros, and then we can concentrate on the 6. So 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 3 gives us 27. And 6 times 5 is 30, plus 2 gives us 32. So now we can add all those together. And once again, you can use a calculator to help you and to check your answers, but make sure you're able to show this process and do this process. So we've got 8 plus 8 is 16, plus another 6 is 22. Carry the 2, 5, 6, 13, and 5 and 3. So I get 353,262. Okay. Next one, we're going to start with the ones. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3, not 1, Leanne. I almost wrote the 1. 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. Okay. Now we are going to concentrate on the 10s, so we add a 0 here. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry that 2 up. 4 times 3 is 12. Plus 2 gives us 14. And now we're going to concentrate on the 100. So we're adding 2 zeros here and looking at that 5. So 5 times 2 gives us 10. Carry the 1. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 1 is 6. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry that 2. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17. And I think the hardest part of these is just keeping track of where you are. Okay, so we can add these all up now. And I get 1,907,016. Okay, next one. We're going to start with that 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. We've got a 0 here. So 2 times 0 is 0. We need to write that 0 in. It's a placeholder. 2 times 4 is 8. And 2 times 5 gives us 10. Now we can move on to the tens column. So we're going to add a 0. And then 4 times 2 gives us 8. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 4 is 16. Carry that 1. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry the 1 for 21. And now we're going to move on to the hundreds, which means we're going to add 2 zeros before we start. 1 times 2 gives us 2. Ones are great because actually you just end up with the same number. So we're going to get 0, 4, and 5 here. We can add up those. Carry the 1 there. And I get 767,084. Okay, these next two, we can do 2 different ways. We could do this vertically. Okay, so if we went this times 100, okay, we're going to start with the ones column. That would just be a 0. Oops, that was supposed to be yellow. 0. Okay, now we move to the tens column. It's just 2 zeros. Now we move to the hundreds column. Am I doing this right? Hundreds column would be, hang on, let's actually do this. Okay. Ones column gives us, oh, I know what I did. Sorry. Okay, so ones column gives us 0. Okay, 0, 0, 0. Then we move to the tens column. When we move to the tens column, we have to write a 0 immediately. Then we write our answer, which is just 0, 0, 0. Then we move to the hundreds, okay, which means we write 2 zeros in. And then we deal with the 1. So 1 times 7, 1 times 5, 1 times 2. So that gives us 25,700. When you have something like this, which is an order of 10, so an order of 10 would be like 10, 100, 1,000. So any 1 with a bunch of zeros. There's a trick you can do, which is that you take the 257 we've got in this case. Okay, whoops. We've done too much multiplication. I can't write anymore. 257, we're going to put our decimal place there, right? Because we know any whole number ends with a decimal. There are 2 zeros in this order of 10, in this 100, which means we're going to move this decimal place 2 over to the right, which leaves you with our answer of 25,700. Same with the next one. So we can either do this the long vertical way, or we can think of it as we're going to write down our number here, 2,436 that we started with. We've got a decimal place here. Now we're multiplying it by 1,000, which has 3 zeros. So that means our decimal place is going to go 1, 2, 3 over to the right, which is going to leave us with 3 more zeros in our answer, which gives us 2,436,000. All right,